Hi, I'm Gareth Spence and welcome to another episode of Tech Talk. Today I'm at ECOC, one of the most important shows for the optical networking industry. To talk through some of the hot topics at the event, I'm joined by authors Rubenstein and Daryl Inniss. Gentlemen, we last met a few years ago at OFC at the launch of your book on silicon photonics. What's changed over those years?
Has anything changed? Is it the same?
It's taking a little bit longer to achieve the more ambitious aspects of the full promise of the technology, but a lot has happened in those 4 years, 5 years.
But arguably, the ecosystem has been established and there are products out there, there's revenue being made, and that was different than some 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes.
Right. So what do you mean?
Things like the full promise, things like optical I/O, co-packaged optics. This has been spoken about for a long time, but it's taking a long time to reach the marketplace. And yet, all the indicators are it will be needed, but it's not happened.
Yeah, okay. I agree. Not quite yet.
What's causing the delay?
It's more complicated than perhaps people thought. There's only a certain number of companies that really need it at this stage, and that will be the very specialist AI giants. And that isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily going to spawn a marketplace. If they really need it, they will work with particular companies and do their own solution, and that's not what the ultimate vision is. This is something that will be needed by all the industry, but that's taking a long time.
As well it will, and recognize that AI is just starting to take off, and architecturally it takes a while to build all the piece parts, not just the optics, but there's so many other things that's needed. And so I think it's a confluence of these factors that's slowing down the adoption.
But just to add, that's the thing that's changed since we wrote the book. The importance of AI is a huge igniter of this space. So it's a wonderful thing to happen for the whole optical industry.
Is AI proving a hot topic at the show here?
This is day 2, and I haven't run into it as much as I thought I would. So one of my, call it homework assignments, is to try to understand more about the architectural aspects that supports AI. And I anticipate that over the next day and a half, 2 days, that I'll get more of that information. So it's here, I just haven't run into it quite yet.
And again, you'll see a lot of press releases using the term AI because it's such an important driver. But as going back to what I was saying earlier, it's going to take a while for this to be embraced. So it's being embraced in the form of, say, 800 gig and maybe 1.6 terabit optical components. There's a lot of work going on for that. But that's traditional optics, highly advanced but traditional optics. It's this more exciting optical I/O. What's going to be needed for these incredibly powerful, dense processors, and thousands of them, and how they interact with the memory, how they talk to each other. That's what's coming, but that's going to take a long time.
Yeah. And it'll take a while for us to see that. I think here, these are just buzzwords that people have affixed to the titles of their presentations and so forth. I think it's still a little bit early.
Talking to presentations then, what are you hearing? What are the hot topics at the event?
Well, the market certainly has, let's say, transformed in that the amount of bandwidth that's being demanded for these applications is continuing to grow. We're hearing 20, 30% year over year, and that's going all the way out to 2030, whether you believe that or not. But the end result is that we're going to need petabits per second on the core of the network, and this brings the demand for changes in fiber, for example. Right?
So that's a change. Fiber has become much more noteworthy at these recent shows.
Yeah,
You'd agree with that?
I agree with that, and it's the base of the network. It's been there, and it's been used, for quite a while, and it's been very successful in terms of its performance for the demand of what's out there. But we're getting to a point now where we need more capacity. And then the question is, well, how are we going to do that? Right? And so there are a number of different approaches that have been debated at this show.
And that's the other thing, Gareth. So we come to these shows every 6 months and you get a snapshot of what's going on and how it pushes the story on. But perhaps if you zoom out, the bigger picture is there's so many issues that progress has been made on, but now it's getting harder. And you can look at this in several areas. And collectively, that's causing change. And then you've got this emergence of an application that strategically could be so important for all sorts of industries. And you get ahead in that area by throwing more hardware at it and what you're asking these machines to do, to train them. And that's creating a demand for technologies. So there's developments happening because things are getting more harder. You can't just ride this forever. But you've also got this new emerging application that's so important, and it's fueling the excitement. So this is a really exciting time, or when I say this, perhaps the next 5-10 years, but there's a lot of change coming. It's just when you look at it every 6 months, it's not necessarily always easy to see how this is playing out. Which is why we have to talk to you again.
Fantastic. Maybe at the next OFC. Let's see in a few months. But gentlemen, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.